Throughout training camp and the preseason, a few names at the wide receiver position have made a case for the 53-man roster. First, it was Tyron Billy Johnson, making plays on the first few days of camp, running with the first team offense, and overall playing really well. Then it was Jalen Cropper, the second-year undrafted free agent out of Fresno State that I personally really like a lot as a potential option in the slot. And now it's Ryan Flournoy, the 6th-round pick in the 2024 draft, really started to put it together on Saturday night against the Raiders. And for the Cowboys, there's a serious battle for that last wide receiver spot, assuming the Cowboys are set to keep 6 at the position. So let's talk about who should be the favorite, who is the favorite, and what each of these guys bring to the table. Let's get into the video. Right now, the Cowboys wide receiver room looks like CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, Jalen Tolbert, Jalen Brooks, and KaVontae Turpin. All 5 of those guys are pretty much locked in. We haven't seen much Tolbert, Brooks, or Turpin in the preseason. So now it really comes down to that last spot, and I do expect the Cowboys to keep 6 on the 53. And in my mind, 2 guys are really in contention for it, Cropper and Flournoy. Some people will probably say that Tyron Billy Johnson could be an option, but honestly, that hype train has kind of slowed down over the past few weeks. So for my own ADHD brain, let's break this video down into 3 parts. Number 1, play style, offensive fit. You know, how do they fit with other wide receivers already in the room? What is that group really missing? Number 2, performance. How have they looked in the preseason and training camp so far? And then finally, number 3, resources, which I'll explain what that one means when we get there. So let's start with play style, because both of these receivers are very different when you look at how they would fit into this group. Cropper is smaller in stature, about 6 foot, 175 pounds, and ran a 4.4 40-yard dash at the combine. He is very much a slot only in the NFL. He's very quick in and out of his breaks. He's hard to keep up with when he's working in the middle of the field. And overall, he's a smooth and shifty receiver that gets open consistently underneath. And that's what he's been doing with the Cowboys. It's what they've been asking him to do ever since he got here in 2023. He's been a slot only guy, and his position is a big reason that he's gotten so much run with the first team offense during training camp. CeeDee Lamb is obviously not there because of the contract holdout, so Cropper is pretty much taking a lot of those slot snaps. For Flournoy, he's your typical X receiver, 6'1", 205 pounds, and ran a 4.44 40-yard dash at the combine. He's a very explosive receiver with a lot of college experience, and oddly enough, he's actually a little bit older than Jalen Cropper because of the extra year in school. What does this Cowboys offense need? CeeDee Lamb gets a ton of his work out of the slot, not all of it, but a lot. The Cowboys also have a small and shifty receiver in KaVontae Turpin who could see snaps out of the slot as well. As for outside receivers, you have Lamb, Brooks, Tolbert, and Cooks. I'm going to let you guys decide on this one. Do the Cowboys need a slot receiver, or do they need another outside receiver, a big body, to complement Cooks, Tolbert, Lamb, whoever? Comment down below, and while you do that, let's look at how all of these traits have translated into their performance this training camp and preseason. Really quick, I want to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's video, BetUS. If you're looking for the best odds for the NFL season, Cowboys futures, live in-game betting, whatever you need, BetUS has you covered. New customers get a 125% sign-up bonus on their first 3 deposits. Deposit $20, get $25 more to play with. The link to sign up is in the description of today's video. Now, let's look at how all of these traits have translated into their performance this training camp and preseason. Overall, I think that Jalen Cropper has had the better camp amongst the both of these guys. I don't believe that's a hot take. It just seems like Cropper was consistently being talked about as a sleeper that continued to stack days at camp. A lot of people out there in Oxnard have talked about him, his ability to get open, his reliability as a 3rd down option. He seemed like he was playing well enough to potentially force the Cowboys' hand and make him that 6th wide receiver. For Flournoy, I'd say that his camp has been a little bit more quiet. He suffered an injury that held him out for a little bit, but he's made some plays. He's made some mistakes here and there. He just wasn't consistently a guy that popped up as having the best training camp practice every single day. I think you could just describe his camp as solid. Nothing horrible, but nothing eye-popping either. So let's evaluate the preseason performances, because I believe in the end, those matter the most. These games can really make it or break it for a lot of players. And I would say that Cropper and Flournoy have almost equally struggled and played well. Against the Rams, Cropper had a nice catch where he had to reach back and grab it off his back hip, but he also had a drop in the Raiders game that killed a drive on 3rd down. But the biggest thing is Cropper has fumbled the ball twice. One luckily went out of bounds, and the other was on a punt return that gave the ball back to the Raiders inside the red zone. And the worst part is that Cropper fumble wasn't even because of a punch or a strip. He just coughed it up because of really bad ball security, and that will get you cut every single time. And I don't have to explain it. We all know that turnovers absolutely infuriate coaches, especially in big time moments. It just cannot happen. And for Cropper, that might be what seals his fate on making the 53-man roster. For Flournoy, he had a drop against the Rams that should have been caught, and it put the offense in a 3rd and long. Flournoy also had a fumble that luckily rolled out of bounds against the Rams. But then he had some really good moments against the Raiders in game 2. We'll call it the Ryan Flournoy drive, because he made 4 really nice catches, including the fade route to the corner where he just lost Jack Jones. Flournoy also showed some really good things in that game as a blocker. He was actually moving people on the outside against the Raiders, and that is such a big thing for a guy trying to grab one of those last few roster spots. Overall, both of these guys have made mistakes and had their moments. If I was to give the edge to either one of them, maybe my recency bias is kicking in a little bit, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think I'd give it to Flournoy. That one drive really flashed that potential on the outside for me. He looked like an NFL receiver, creating separation, picking up some yards after the catch, showed some really good things, smooth route running. I might just be biased because it happened most recently, but Flournoy really impressed me in the Raiders game. But before we get to the final answer on who I think should make this roster, this one might matter most of all. Resources. How much has the team invested in the player? For most teams, I would say that a 6th round pick isn't a huge investment, and it probably doesn't matter when it comes down to making the 53. But we're talking about the Cowboys here. They love their draft picks. Love. All the way down to their 6th and 7th rounders. For Cropper, he was an undrafted free agent in 2023. He spent a year in the building. Cowboys are familiar with him and his game, but maybe they feel like they could sneak him onto the practice squad easier than Flournoy if they were to cut either of these guys. But I have to imagine the way that the Cowboys like to do business, if it's this close between two players, they're going to give the nod to their 6th round pick from 2024 over the undrafted free agent from 2023. Especially when you look at the athletic profile, the willingness as a blocker, the flashes of potential in the preseason, and then add on top the draft capital. I think the job going into the final preseason game is going to be Ryan Flournoy's to lose. But I want to ask all of you guys, what do you think? In your mind, who is winning that last wide receiver spot? Let me know down below in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I love you all, and I'll see you next time.